The Mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. Part 1. Hook, Introduction, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Hook, imagine you're flying across a bright blue sky over the Atlantic Ocean. The weather is calm. Your instruments are working. Your crew is experienced. Then, without warning, your compass begins to spin. The ocean below stretches endlessly in every direction. The radio fills with static. Your location no longer makes sense. You try to call for help, but no one can hear you. Minutes later, your aircraft simply disappears. No distress signal, no wreckage, no survivors. For decades, stories like this have fueled one of the greatest mysteries in modern history. A place where ships and airplanes seem to vanish without explanation. Some believe it's nothing more than dangerous weather. Others are convinced something far stranger lies beneath the waves. But here's the question that refuses to disappear. Is the Bermuda Triangle truly one of the most dangerous places on Earth? Or has one of history's biggest mysteries been built on fear, coincidence, and legend? Because once we begin uncovering the evidence, you'll realize the truth is far more fascinating than the myths. Introduction. The Bermuda Triangle isn't marked on official maps. There are no warning signs floating in the ocean. Millions of ships and airplanes travel through this region every year without incident. Yet despite that, the name Bermuda Triangle has become almost legendary. Stretching between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, this vast section of the Atlantic Ocean covers nearly 500,000 square miles. It's one of the busiest transportation routes in the world. Over the past century, dozens of disappearances have been linked to this area. Some were eventually explained. Others remain frustratingly unsolved. The stories are filled with missing crews, abandoned ships, strange radio messages, and questions that still have no clear answers. But separating fact from fiction isn't easy. As we follow the timeline of these mysterious events, we'll uncover forgotten reports, examine scientific explanations, and explore why this stretch of ocean continues to capture the world's imagination. And strangely enough, the mystery didn't begin with Flight 19. It started much earlier. Chapter 1. Entering the Devil's Triangle. Long before it became known as the Bermuda Triangle, sailors already feared these waters. The Atlantic Ocean between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico has always been unpredictable. Powerful storms can appear almost without warning. Massive waves rise from calm seas. Fast-moving currents shift ships off course in ways that even experienced captains struggle to predict. Among these forces is the Gulf Stream, a powerful ocean current flowing from the Gulf of Mexico into the North Atlantic. Moving at speeds of up to 5 miles per hour, it can carry floating debris away from an accident scene within hours. That means if a ship sinks or an aircraft crashes, the evidence can disappear quickly, making investigations incredibly difficult. But nature alone doesn't explain why these waters became so infamous. The first explorers crossing the Atlantic recorded strange experiences. In 1492, Christopher Columbus wrote in his journal that his compass behaved unusually while sailing through this region. He also described mysterious lights appearing in the distance over the ocean. Centuries later, those observations would become part of the Bermuda Triangle legend. Were these signs of something unknown? Or were early sailors simply witnessing natural phenomena they didn't yet understand? Nobody can say for certain. As technology improved, people expected these mysterious disappearances to become a thing of the past. After all, ships became stronger, navigation became more accurate, aircraft could communicate instantly over long distances. Surely modern machines couldn't simply vanish, but that assumption would soon be shattered. Because in the early 20th century, one disappearance would shock the world and begin turning scattered stories into an international mystery. Chapter 2. The Ship That Vanished Without a Trace. It was March 1918. World War I was raging across Europe. The United States Navy had recently commissioned one of its largest cargo ships, a massive vessel named USS Cyclops. At more than 500 feet long, Cyclops was considered a giant of its time. Built to transport coal and military supplies, it was powerful, reliable, and crewed by over 300 officers and sailors. In early March, the ship departed from Barbados, carrying thousands of tons of manganese ore, an important material used in steel production. Its destination was Baltimore, Maryland. The voyage should have taken only a few days. The weather wasn't considered unusually severe. There were no reports of enemy attacks. No distress calls were received. Then, silence. The Cyclops simply disappeared. More than 300 people vanished with it, making it one of the largest non-combat losses in U.S. naval history. Search ships combed the Atlantic. The Navy launched investigations. Officials reviewed weather records and shipping routes. Nothing was found. No floating wreckage, no lifeboats, no bodies, no confirmed explanation. For families waiting at home, hope slowly turned into heartbreak. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Eventually, the Navy declared the ship lost. Yet nobody could explain how a vessel of that size could disappear so completely. Over the years, theories multiplied. Some believed the ship had become overloaded with its heavy cargo, causing structural failure. Others suggested a violent storm may have overwhelmed the vessel before it could send a distress signal. Still others pointed towards sabotage, mechanical failure, or even enemy action during wartime. But none of these ideas could be proven beyond doubt. The mystery remained. And with every unanswered question, the legend surrounding these waters grew stronger. Newspapers began publishing dramatic headlines. Writers connected unrelated disappearances. Rumors spread from one generation to the next. Slowly, an ordinary stretch of ocean transformed into something much larger, a place people whispered about with fear. Yet even the disappearance of the USS Cyclops would soon be overshadowed by an event so strange that it would define the Bermuda Triangle forever. It involved 5 military aircraft, 14 highly trained pilots, a routine training mission, and one final radio transmission that still sends chills down the spine. But what happened on that December afternoon in 1945 shocked the entire world. Number 6 of the Bermuda Triangle. Part 2. Flight 19. The Rescue Mission and a Mystery That Changed History. Chapter 3. Flight 19. The Mission That Never Returned. It was the afternoon of December 5, 1945. World War II had ended only a few months earlier. Across the United States, military bases were returning to peacetime operations. One of those bases was the Naval Air Station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. For a group of young Navy aviators, it seemed like just another routine training exercise. 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers sat ready on the runway. Their mission was simple: fly east over the Atlantic, complete a bombing practice, then turn north before heading back to base. It was a route flown countless times before. The flight was led by Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor, a veteran pilot with more than 2,500 hours of flying experience. The other crews were also trained military aviators. Together, the 5 aircraft carried 14 men. At 2:10 p.m., the engines roared to life. One by one, the Avengers lifted into the Florida sky. No one watching from the ground could have imagined that none of them would ever return. At first, everything went exactly as planned. The bombing exercise was completed successfully, and the pilots began the next stage of their flight. Then, something changed. A voice filled with confusion. Shortly after 3:40 p.m., radio operators at the base received a message that immediately caught their attention. Lieutenant Taylor sounded uncertain. He reported that both of his compasses had stopped working correctly. Even more troubling, he believed the flight had become lost. The experienced pilot couldn't determine which direction was west. His exact words have become some of the most famous in aviation history. "Both my compasses are out. I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale. I'm over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Florida Keys, but I don't know how far down." The statement confused everyone listening. The Florida Keys were southwest of the base, but based on where Flight 19 should have been, they were actually somewhere east of Florida over the Atlantic Ocean. If Taylor had mistaken the islands beneath him for the Florida Keys, he may have been navigating in exactly the wrong direction. Ground controllers immediately tried to help. "Turn due west," they instructed. If the aircraft flew west, they would eventually reach the Florida coastline. But Taylor hesitated. He wasn't convinced the controllers were right. Instead, he continued searching for landmarks that matched what he believed he was seeing. With every passing minute, the aircraft moved farther from safety. The situation becomes desperate. As the afternoon faded into evening, conditions over the Atlantic began to change. The sun slowly disappeared behind dark clouds. The wind grew stronger. The sea below became rough. Inside the cockpits, fuel levels continued to drop. The radio transmissions became increasingly tense. One pilot quietly suggested what many were already thinking: "If we just fly west, we'll get home." But the formation stayed together. Military discipline required the pilots to follow their leader. Unfortunately, if the leader's navigation was wrong, everyone would share the same fate. Radio operators continued listening. Sometimes the voices were clear. Sometimes they faded into static. Then came another chilling transmission. Taylor reportedly said, "We don't know where we are. Everything looks strange." Those words have echoed through history ever since. What exactly looks strange? Was he referring to the weather, the ocean, his instruments, or simply the overwhelming confusion of becoming lost over open water? No one will ever know. As darkness fell, Flight 19 continued flying. Every minute consumed more fuel. Every mile reduced the chances of survival. Then, the radio fell silent. The 5 aircraft had disappeared. An ocean with no answers. The U.S. Navy reacted immediately. This wasn't just one missing airplane. It was 5 military aircraft carrying 14 servicemen. One of the largest search operations in American history began almost at once. Ships rushed toward the suspected flight path. Aircraft took off in every direction. Radio stations repeatedly called for the missing pilots. Nothing. No response. No emergency signal. No floating wreckage. No oil slick. No life rafts. It was as though Flight 19 had simply vanished into the Atlantic. For the families waiting at home, every passing hour brought less hope. Yet what happened next made the situation even more unbelievable. Because the rescue mission itself would become another mystery. Chapter 4. The Rescue Plane That Never Came Back. Only 20 minutes after Flight 19 was declared missing, another aircraft prepared for takeoff. It was a PBM Mariner, a massive flying boat often used for long-range rescue missions. The aircraft carried 13 experienced crew members. Their mission was clear: find Flight 19, bring the men home. As the Mariner lifted into the evening sky, everyone believed help was finally on the way. But the rescue aircraft never completed its mission. Only minutes after takeoff, a merchant ship sailing nearby reported seeing a bright explosion in the sky. Crew members described a large fireball followed by burning fuel spreading across the ocean's surface. The Navy investigated the report carefully. The PBM Mariner had earned a troubling nickname among pilots: the flying gas tank. Because of fuel vapor issues, these aircraft were known to be vulnerable to explosions if even a small spark ignited fuel inside the aircraft. Many investigators now believe the Mariner likely exploded in midair due to a mechanical accident. Yet despite eyewitness reports, no confirmed wreckage was ever recovered. Now the mystery had grown even larger. 5 aircraft, 14 pilots, 1 rescue plane, 13 rescuers, 27 people, gone. The largest search operation of its time. For nearly a week, the United States Navy searched relentlessly. Hundreds of aircraft scanned the Atlantic. Dozens of ships crossed thousands of square miles. Search crews battled rough seas, changing weather, and limited visibility. The operation covered more than 250,000 square miles of ocean. It was one of the largest air and sea searches ever conducted. And despite all that effort, nothing. No aircraft, no survivors, no confirmed crash site, no final explanation. Eventually, investigators faced the difficult reality that Flight 19 was lost forever. The official Navy investigation initially suggested that Lieutenant Taylor's navigational errors likely caused the disappearance. However, after pressure from Taylor's family, the final report was revised. Instead of blaming the pilot directly, the Navy concluded that the cause was unknown. That single word would change everything. Chapter 5. The Birth of a Legend. The disappearance of Flight 19 quickly became international news. Newspapers across America published dramatic headlines. Radio broadcasters repeated the story. Readers became fascinated. How could 5 military aircraft simply disappear? How could an entire rescue plane vanish as well? People searched for answers. When none came, imagination filled the empty spaces. During the 1950s and 1960s, writers began connecting other disappearances in the same region. They grouped unrelated accidents together. Some stories were accurate. Others became exaggerated over time. In 1964, author Vincent Gaddis introduced a name that would become famous around the world: the Bermuda Triangle. It sounded mysterious, dangerous, almost supernatural. Books became bestsellers. Television documentaries followed. Hollywood embraced the mystery. Soon, the Bermuda Triangle wasn't just a location. It became a symbol of the unexplained. Some believed invisible forces were at work. Others blamed aliens. Some claimed an ancient lost civilization lay beneath the ocean. Each new theory attracted millions of believers, but there was one problem. Many of these claims ignored important facts. As researchers dug deeper into historical records, they discovered that several famous Bermuda Triangle stories had been exaggerated, misunderstood, or reported incorrectly. So if many of the legends weren't entirely true, why does the mystery still survive today? Because hidden beneath decades of sensational headlines are real events, real tragedies, and scientific mysteries that continue to puzzle experts. And that's where our investigation takes an unexpected turn. In the next chapter, we'll uncover the lesser-known facts, examine what most documentaries leave out, and separate the myths from the evidence. The truth, it turns out, may be even more fascinating than the legend itself. Number 5. Part 3. Hidden Facts, Scientific Explanations, and the Theories That Refuse to Die. Echoes of History, Netflix-style documentary script. Chapter 6. Hidden Facts Nobody Talks About. By the late 1960s, the Bermuda Triangle had become one of the most talked-about mysteries in the world. Books claimed hundreds of ships and airplanes had vanished without a trace. Television specials described invisible forces, mysterious lights, and strange energy fields. To millions of people, it seemed obvious that something extraordinary was happening. But when historians and investigators began examining the original records, they discovered something surprising. Many of the stories had changed over time. Some details had been exaggerated. Others had been completely invented, and a few famous Bermuda Triangle disappearances hadn't even happened inside the triangle at all. That doesn't mean every mystery was solved, far from it. But it does mean the legend became larger than the facts. One example was the cargo ship SS Marine Sulphur Queen, which disappeared in 1963 while carrying molten sulfur. The ship never reached its destination. Only a few pieces of debris were ever found. Some immediately blamed the Bermuda Triangle. However, investigators discovered the vessel had serious structural concerns before it even left port. The ship had been converted from an oil tanker into a sulfur carrier, raising questions about whether its design could safely handle such heavy cargo. Could rough seas have caused the ship to break apart? No one knows for certain. The official investigation could not determine a final cause. Then there was the famous story of the Witchcraft, a luxury cabin cruiser that disappeared in 1967. Its owner called the Coast Guard after the boat appeared to hit something just a mile off the coast of Miami. The situation didn't seem urgent. The vessel wasn't sinking. Help was only minutes away. But when rescuers arrived, the boat was gone. No passengers, no wreckage, no floating debris. It remains one of the Triangle's most puzzling disappearances. Stories like these kept the mystery alive. But another question was beginning to emerge. What if the ocean itself was the real culprit? Chapter 7. The Ocean's Deadliest Secrets. From above, the Atlantic looks calm, beautiful, endless. But beneath the surface, it's one of the most powerful environments on Earth. The Bermuda Triangle sits in a region where nature can become incredibly dangerous. The Gulf Stream, one of the strongest ocean currents in the world, races through these waters like a giant underwater river. It moves so quickly that wreckage from a shipwreck can be carried dozens of miles away in just a few hours. By the time rescue teams arrive, almost every trace of an accident may already be gone. This alone makes investigations extremely difficult. Then there are the storms. The Atlantic is famous for producing sudden thunderstorms and powerful hurricanes. Even modern satellites sometimes struggle to predict exactly where severe weather will develop. A clear sky can transform into a violent storm within minutes. For pilots flying in the 1940s and 1950s, this created enormous risks. Without today's GPS systems or advanced weather radar, crews often relied on visual navigation and magnetic compasses. If clouds blocked the horizon and instruments became unreliable, even experienced pilots could lose their sense of direction. Researchers also point to another natural phenomenon. Massive underwater mountains and deep ocean trenches lie beneath the triangle. Some areas plunge more than 20,000 feet below the surface. If an aircraft crashes there, recovering the wreckage becomes incredibly difficult, even with today's technology. But perhaps the most fascinating explanation involves something invisible: the Earth's magnetic field, a compass that doesn't point north. Most people assume a compass always points to true north. It doesn't. A compass points toward magnetic north, which isn't exactly the same location. Normally, navigators know the difference and adjust for it, but for many years, one unusual feature made the Bermuda region unique. It was one of the few places on Earth where true north and magnetic north were nearly aligned. This wasn't supernatural. It was a natural geographic condition. However, inexperienced navigators who expected a compass correction where none was needed could accidentally drift off course. Small navigation errors become much larger over open ocean. Fly the wrong direction for an hour and you may be hundreds of miles away from where you believe you are. For aircraft running low on fuel, that mistake can become fatal. Could this explain Flight 19? Many aviation experts believe it played a role, but not everyone agrees, because another theory has captured people's imagination for decades, one involving the ocean floor itself. Chapter 8: Methane, Atlantis, and Visitors from Beyond. One of the most popular scientific theories involves methane gas. Deep beneath parts of the ocean floor lie deposits of frozen methane trapped inside sediments. Some researchers have suggested that large methane releases could reduce the density of seawater. In theory, a ship floating above such a release could lose buoyancy and sink more quickly than expected. If methane also entered an aircraft's engines while rising into the atmosphere, it might interfere with combustion. It's an intriguing idea. But here's the important part. Despite laboratory experiments showing methane can reduce water density, there is no confirmed evidence that methane eruptions have caused the famous Bermuda Triangle disappearances. The theory remains speculative. Then, there's one of the most famous legends of all, Atlantis. According to ancient Greek philosopher Plato, Atlantis was a powerful civilization that disappeared beneath the sea thousands of years ago. Over time, some writers claimed the lost city rested somewhere beneath the Bermuda Triangle. They imagined advanced crystal technology, hidden energy sources, and mysterious forces capable of disabling ships and aircraft. It's a fascinating story, but archaeologists have found no credible evidence that Atlantis existed where the Bermuda Triangle is today. The idea belongs to mythology rather than history. Still, it refuses to disappear. And then, there are the aliens. Books, television shows, and movies have suggested extraterrestrial visitors use the Bermuda Triangle as some kind of hidden gateway. Some even claim UFOs are responsible for the missing ships and aircraft. These stories are entertaining. They make for exciting fiction. But once again, there is no verified evidence supporting these claims. No confirmed sightings. No recovered technology. No scientific proof. Yet millions continue believing something extraordinary exists beneath those waters. Perhaps that's because humans naturally search for extraordinary answers when ordinary explanations feel incomplete. But the greatest twist of all may be much simpler. What if the Bermuda Triangle isn't actually more dangerous than any other part of the ocean? That possibility has sparked one of the biggest debates in modern history. And the answer may completely change the way we think about this legendary place. How? The Mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. Part 4. The Truth Behind the Legend, Its Lasting Legacy, and an Emotional Conclusion. Echoes of History, Netflix-style documentary script. Chapter 9. What really happened? After decades of speculation, one question still remains. Is the Bermuda Triangle truly different from every other place on Earth? Today, investigators have access to technology that the crews of Flight 19 could never have imagined. Satellites monitor weather systems in real time. GPS can pinpoint a ship's location within a few feet. Sonar maps the ocean floor in incredible detail, and aircraft carry navigation systems far more accurate than the magnetic compasses of the past. With all this technology, scientists have taken another look at the Bermuda Triangle, and the results surprised many people. Organizations such as the U.S. Coast Guard and marine researchers have found no evidence that the Bermuda Triangle experiences more unexplained disappearances than other heavily traveled regions of the world's oceans. In fact, this area is one of the busiest shipping and aviation routes on the planet. Every single day, cargo ships, cruise liners, private boats, military aircraft, and commercial airliners safely cross these waters. Millions of people travel through the triangle every year. Most arrive exactly where they're supposed to. So why does the mystery continue? Part of the answer lies in probability. When a region sees enormous amounts of traffic, accidents are naturally more likely to occur simply because so many vessels pass through it. And when those accidents happen over deep ocean, evidence can disappear quickly. Powerful currents scatter debris, storms erase clues, the ocean keeps its secrets. But that doesn't make every mystery supernatural. Sometimes the simplest explanation is also the most difficult one to accept. Human error, mechanical failure, unexpected weather, navigation mistakes, each on its own may seem ordinary. Combined together in one unforgiving environment, they can become deadly. Still, there are cases that continue to puzzle investigators, not because they prove the existence of mysterious forces, but because the available evidence is simply incomplete. And incomplete stories leave room for imagination. Chapter 10. How a mystery became a global legend. If science offers reasonable explanations, Why does the Bermuda Triangle remain one of the world's most famous mysteries? The answer has as much to do with storytelling as it does with history. In the 1950s and 1960s, magazines began publishing dramatic articles about unexplained disappearances. Authors connected separate events into a single narrative. Facts mixed with speculation, speculation slowly transformed into certainty. Then Hollywood stepped in. Movies showed ships vanishing into glowing clouds. Television documentaries featured mysterious music, dramatic reenactments, and theories involving aliens, time warps, and lost civilizations. Each new version made the legend even more exciting. Soon, the Bermuda Triangle wasn't just a place. It became a symbol of humanity's fascination with the unknown. Even today, the phrase Bermuda Triangle instantly sparks curiosity. It reminds us that despite all our technology, there are still parts of our world and our history that feel mysterious. But perhaps the greatest mystery isn't hidden beneath the ocean. Perhaps it's hidden inside us. Why are we so drawn to stories without endings? Why do unanswered questions stay with us long after the facts have faded? Because the human mind naturally searches for meaning. When the evidence runs out, imagination takes over. The families left behind, lost beneath every headline, every documentary, every sensational theory, are real people. The crew of the USS Cyclops, the 14 men aboard Flight 19, the 13 rescuers who never returned. The passengers aboard missing ships, the families who waited by telephones, who searched newspapers, who hoped for a knock at the front door that never came. For them, the Bermuda Triangle was never entertainment. It was heartbreak. Many never received answers. No final goodbye. No confirmed resting place. Only silence. It's easy to become fascinated by mystery. It's much harder to imagine living with it. For decades, that human tragedy is often forgotten beneath the myths, yet it's the most important part of this story. One last question. Imagine standing on the deck of a ship at sunset. The Atlantic stretches endlessly in every direction. The waves rise and fall beneath a sky turning orange and gold. Everything appears peaceful, beautiful, ordinary. Yet somewhere beneath those waters lie countless wrecks. Some discovered, many never found, not because they were swallowed by magic, but because the ocean is vast beyond imagination. More than 80% of Earth's oceans remain unexplored. We know more about parts of the moon than we do about much of the deep sea. That thought is both humbling and strangely comforting, because even in the 21st century, our world still holds mysteries. Not every unanswered question needs a supernatural answer. Sometimes, the unknown simply reminds us how much there is left to discover. And maybe that's why the Bermuda Triangle continues to captivate us. Not because it has been fully explained, not because it has remained completely unsolved, but because it exists in the space between certainty and mystery, where curiosity never dies. Emotional conclusion. The Bermuda Triangle has inspired fear, wonder, books, films, and countless debates for more than half a century. Some believe science has already solved the mystery. Others remain convinced that something extraordinary still waits beneath those waves. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. History teaches us that legends often begin with real events. Over time, facts become stories. Stories become myths. And myths become part of our culture. Whether the Bermuda Triangle is a place of extraordinary danger or simply one of history's greatest legends, it reminds us of something timeless. The world is still filled with questions. And as long as questions remain, people will continue searching for answers. Call to action. If you enjoyed uncovering the truth behind one of history's greatest mysteries, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Echoes of History, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next doc.